Any good Marvel fan knows that superheroes can have some pretty complex origin stories, but we have found some examples that are downright crazy. That's why we're breaking down the top 10 Marvel superheroes that became villains. Number 10. Scarlet Witch. Back in 2004, Wanda Maximoff had a nervous breakdown and launched a magic-fueled attack on the Avengers that nearly destroyed them. Ant-Man, Hawkeye, and Vision were killed, Avengers Mansion was destroyed, and the Avengers disbanded. It was a story called Avengers Disassembled, and it paved the way for the launch of New Avengers in 2006, with A-list characters like the Spider-Man and Wolverine added to the roster. Now, in her defense, learning that the twin boys you had with your android husband were just magical constructs and not real, and that all your friends erased your memories of them, well, that would send anybody over the edge.
If you do this, they will never stop being afraid of you.
I can't control their fear, only my own.
Number 9. Daredevil. Daredevil has always been a hero who leans a little closer to the harsh end of the vigilante spectrum, so seeing him become a villain after starting down a darker path than usual was, well, in a way, a logical conclusion. But in the end, it turned out to be just the latest case of possessed by an evil entity. You'll see several more of these as we go along. Daredevil was possessed by a demon called the Beast of the Hand. In the end, he was exorcised by Iron Fist chi powers, and then he killed himself to keep the demon from repossessing him, after which Elektra brought him right back to life, of course. He cut out of town for a while, understandably, but it wasn't long before things reverted to normal. Number 8. Bucky Barnes.
Bucky?
Who the hell is Bucky?
Once Captain America's best friend and loyal sidekick, his death during World War II served as a touchstone for Cap's future motivations for decades. So it came as a great shock when Bucky was discovered alive in the here and now and functioning as a covert secret operative known as the Winter Soldier. Hydra wiped his mind, gave him a new metal arm to replace the one that he lost in the war, and then kept him in suspended animation between missions, allowing him to age to roughly the same amount of time as the modern Steve Rogers. As the Winter Soldier, Bucky undertook dozens of Black Ops missions for Hydra, his conditioning enforcing his loyalty and willingness to kill. Hydra also gave him a major skill boost. Number 8. Mary Marvel. In 2006, DC sent Mary down a much darker path than readers ever expected. Mary lost her powers, fell into a coma, and later acquired new powers from the longtime nemesis of the Marvel family, Black Adam. Her exposure to Adam's form of magic changed her, a turn of events exacerbated by her repeated manipulation from the likes of Darkseid, Granny Goodness, Eclipso, and Desaad, and who, well, you guessed it, possessed her at one point. Number 7. Angel, Archangel.
I want to give you something.
There's nothing you can give me that I want.
Warren Worthington III was one of the original 5 X-Men, but when he joined X-Force, things changed pretty drastically for him. As a child, he'd begun growing feathery bird wings, and soon he was able to fly. As a mutant, he was an effective fighter and a member of Charles Xavier's initial team. It was during a crossover event called Mutant Massacre that Warren's wings were mutilated by an evil mutant named Harpoon. Each wing was impaled, crucifixion style, and they later became infected and had to be amputated. Warren was devastated by this turn of events, and at his weakest moment, the hyper-powerful villain Apocalypse offered to restore his wings if Angel would serve as Death, one of his 4 horsemen. He then agreed, and Warren's superior fighting skills caused Apocalypse to name Warren, now the power-enhanced Archangel, as the lead horseman. Number 6. Sinestro. A native of the planet Korrigar, Sinestro's desire to protect his world and keep the peace turned into an enforced dictatorship of absolute power thanks to abuse of his lantern powers. When the Guardians on Oa found out, he was stripped of his ring and sent to the antimatter universe. Number 5. Ultimate Reed Richards. This young genius has a wicked scar on his face and an even more wicked superiority complex. So who is he? Well, he's the Ultimate Universe's version of Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four. He started out well in a comic book that reinvented the FF as a team of 4 young adults involved at a government think tank. Reed was the best and brightest of that group, and an accident in the negative zone gave his team their powers. Number 4. Azrael. DC Comics was looking to shake up the status quo by putting someone new under Batman's cowl for a little while. Thus was born Jean-Paul Valley, or Azrael as he's now known. It was a case of villain becomes hero, becomes villain again, becomes hero again. Valley was a brutal vigilante working for the Order of Saint Dumas, whose purpose was to punish the guilty instead of protecting the innocent. And it didn't go well. Due to the conditioning that he'd received all his life, he became unhinged, employing ever more barbaric tactics and suffering from hallucinations. Bruce Wayne's recovery allowed him to stop the madness, breaking through Valley's conditioning and becoming Batman yet again. Valley, meanwhile, got better, took on the mythic role of Azrael, and worked with Team Batman for years before dying in the No Man's Land crossover event. Number 3. Plutonian. Mark Waid's Irredeemable was the superhero equivalent of Breaking Bad, the story of a good man who turned evil. In this case, that man was Dan Hardigan, a superhero similar in power to Superman, going by the name Plutonian. Unlike Superman, he came from a series of broken foster homes. As an adult, he confided his secret identity to his girlfriend, but she was outraged that he would trick her and told the whole world who he really was in retaliation. Things went downhill from there. Dan had an affair with one of his fellow superheroes, who also happened to be a married woman. Later, he was partially responsible for an accident involving an alien virus that killed hundreds of children. He compounded the problem by trying to keep his part of the tragedy a secret, which his sidekick soon discovered. Plutonian snapped when confronted with the truth and lobotomized his protege. Ouch! He then destroyed Sky City, their version of Metropolis and home to some 3.5 million people. Number 2. Cyclops.
It must just burn you up that a boy like me saved your life, huh? Gotta be careful. Might not be there next time.
Once upon a time, there was a nice X-Men named Scott Summers. He was reliable, responsible, and level-headed. And then, in a long series of attempts to make him more interesting by giving him some shades of gray, Marvel assassinated his character. Cyclops' troubles began in the mid-'80s after he mourned the loss of Jean Grey and a married woman named Madeline Pryor. When Scott learned that Jean was still alive after all, thanks to some heavy-handed editorial retconning, he made the jerk move of running out on his family and returning to his first love. Strike one. Years later, in an effort to save Nate's life, he merged with Apocalypse, which left him a changed man even after he was restored. Distancing himself from his wife, Jean, he began a psychic affair with Emma Frost and started going down a long road toward extremist mutant views. When Jean died, he continued his controversial relationship with Emma. Sometime later, several past sins of Professor Xavier were brought to light. Scott forced him to leave the school. Cyclops then formed a new X-Force for Black Ops missions, but keeping their existence a secret came at the cost of his intimacy with Emma. Scott was eventually possessed by the Phoenix Force, killed Xavier, and remade the world into a totalitarian state. When that crisis ended, he was sent to prison, but escaped and became a revolutionary, taking a hardline approach to doing whatever's necessary to aid mutants around the world. He even opened his own secret mutant training academy at an old Weapon X facility. Number 1. Jason Todd. 1988. Well, that was a big year for Joker. He'd always been a thorn in Batman's side, but this year brought out his most sadistic attacks ever. First, he crippled poor Barbara Gordon in Alan Moore's The Killing Joke. Then, he killed Robin, aka the second Robin, Jason Todd. Todd was never terribly popular. Jason's rebellious nature didn't do him any favors among the Bat fans, so DC held an event where readers were allowed to decide if Jason lived or died using a 900 number. By a very small margin, death was the decision, so a story was written in which Jason was captured by Joker with help from Jason's long-lost mother, no less, and left to die from a bomb blast. Jason made his return in 2005 in the Under the Red Hood story arc, which introduced a new vigilante in town calling himself the Red Hood. He led his own gang and had a take-no-prisoner approach to justice, bringing him into conflict with Batman. It was later revealed that Jason had been revived by DC's favorite back-from-the-dead plot device, a Lazarus Pit. He functioned as a nemesis for a while and fought as to take on Batman's persona during Battle for the Cowl. FYI, he lost. The New 52 softened Jason a bit, making him an anti-hero instead of a villain, and a card-carrying member of the Bat family. There's tension and drama often between him and the other Robins, Batman, and even Batgirl, but they work together and mostly get along these days. He also fights alongside other heroes of a similar temperament, Arsenal and Starfire, and Red Hood and the Outlaws. Who knows which superhero will flip next, but be sure to leave your guesses in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any new content. This has been Top 10 Marvel Superheroes That Became Villains.